Hello, English 102 remote students. Professor Berninger here, in case you didn't recognize me. I'm going to answer your questions about the Great Gatsby, and then I'm going to post an additional video where I get into some details of the book, just hitting the highlights. I'm not going to beat you over the head with this thing. You did a pretty good job with your questions. You showed a really solid understanding of the book. So let us start with... Well, here's a good question. Courtney, why does Daisy marry Tom? It's simple. One of the messages in this book is that people who are born into wealth, old money, rich people, not Gatsby, he's new money, stick together. That the American dream is baloney. And if you think you can penetrate that upper level of the social and economic class system, you'll wind up dead in your swimming pool like Gatsby or driven over in the street like Myrtle. Daisy marries Tom because Daisy was programmed from birth to do one thing: marry a rich person from a wealthy family. From birth, upper class, sort of Southern, she's from Kentucky, Southern yet Midwestern woman was raised with one purpose: to marry a rich man from a wealthy family. And that's what she does. So good question, Courtney. Really gets to the heart of things. Another Courtney question. What does Daisy mean when she says when her daughter's born, "And I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool"? It's a very cynical remark, and it shows that Daisy is not a fool. Daisy knows that that's all the world wants from a rich young woman, is for her to grow up to be a fool, a beautiful little fool. Daisy is a trophy that Tom and Gatsby are tussling over. And that's all she is. That's all those two men want her to be. That's all society wants her to be. A nurse raises her daughter. She doesn't work. She just has a husband that screws around, and she's bored in a big house. And only a beautiful fool would love that. So it's a very cynical remark. And it shows that Daisy's not a fool, that she does have self-awareness. She thinks she'd be better off being a fool. Very good. Chelsea, what was the final straw that made Nick break up with Jordan? Well, Jordan Baker kind of represents the careless rich in this story. She cheats at golf. She drives through a construction zone, and she drives so close to a construction worker, a working blue-collar man, she flicks a button off his vest. Nick calls her a careless driver, and Jordan has a great response, which really gets at the heart of what Fitzgerald thinks of rich people in this book. I'm fine as long as I don't meet another careless driver. Basically, Jordan's attitude is, let other people be careful, I'll drive however I want. And that is symbolic of how she and Daisy and Tom go through life. Let other people be careful. We're rich, we can do whatever we want. And by the way, Nick breaks up with a woman in Chicago because she was rumored to be married and she got sweat on her lip when she played tennis. He breaks up with a woman in New Jersey whose brother gives him a dirty look. Nick's not exactly into women. Now, whether he's gay or not, I don't know. That's an interesting question, but it doesn't impact the story much. Nick loves Gatsby. That's the only one Nick loves in this book. Good. John, why is the book titled The Great Gatsby? Good question. It's not one of the most elegant titles. Other Fitzgerald titles like Tender is the Night, The Beautiful and the Damned, This Side, The Far Side of Paradise, beautiful titles. This title is good, The Great Gatsby. It gets at Gatsby's duality, the two ways to see Gatsby. On one hand, he's great. He believes in love. He believes in the American dream. On the other hand, it's like, step right up, see the Great Gatsby, the illusionist, the sideshow huckster. And Gatsby's both of those things. He's a beautiful dreamer who believes in love, and he's also an illusionist. He has a fake name, a fake biography, he tells people. He's a showman like the Great Gatsby. Good question, John, and it really gets to the heart of Gatsby. Why is the place before the city called the Valley of the Ashes? Because it's a dump. It's probably a lot of coal ash. People burn coal, it leaves ash, you got to dump it somewhere. Literally, the Wilsons live in a dump. His garage in the middle of the Valley of the Ashes. It is based on a real place, just like East and West Egg are the two sides of Manhasset Bay in Long Island. But it's where the poor people live in this book. They live in a dump, right? They live in a dump. Jasmine, who inspired Gatsby? Good question. Actually, F. Scott Fitzgerald himself is sort of Nick and Gatsby all in one. Fitzgerald fell in love with a wealthy Southern woman, Zelda Sayre. She said, I'm not going to marry you because you're poor. And so he went home and he wrote a book and made a lot of money, and she married him, unlike Daisy, who doesn't marry Gatsby. So in a way, Fitzgerald himself is Gatsby, and of course Fitzgerald's also Nick, the outsider, the storyteller. What is Gatsby's biggest flaw? Good question, Jasmine. Well, he's an idiot. He's a fool. He puts Daisy high on a pedestal. Though I like the guy, he's a dreamer and he'd be fun, he throws good parties, he is monomaniacal. He is obsessed with one thing in life, which is a bad thing, the dream of getting Daisy. And when that dream doesn't work, he has nothing, right? Living your life with one dream is a bad idea, because if you don't get it, you've got nothing. If you do get it, then what? So I think his biggest flaw is being monomaniacal, obsessed with Daisy. It's not healthy for a relationship. It's not healthy as a human being. And he just thinks he can erase 5 years. When did Gatsby know he was doomed? I think in a way Gatsby's dream goes right till the end, until he's shot dead in a swimming pool by George Wilson, who is a tool of Tom, right? Tom Buchanan hints to George, sends George over to Gatsby's place to see the car that hit Myrtle. But I don't know if he ever really thought the dream was over. However, as I will show you when I get deeper into the book, it's really when Daisy says, you want too much. I loved you too. She says, yeah, I loved Tom and I loved you. Gatsby can't handle that. Can't handle that. Okay, geez, here's a good one. What is the most important theme in The Great Gatsby? Thanks, Madeline. There are a couple. I think the main theme, and I've taught and studied this book for a long time, the main theme is that the American dream is really a bunch of baloney. Number one, you cannot rise up into the upper class wealth and status in this country. If you're not born with it, you're not going to get it. In America, it was founded on the idea, Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. And this book is saying, no, they're not all created equal. You can work hard. Gatsby has his list of improvements. And does he break into these? No, he has to become a criminal to make money, right? He can't do it legally, even though he's a smart, hardworking guy. He has to become a criminal. He gets money. And even then, you can't break into the upper class. It's a closed society. It's like royalty, very un-American. So one theme in this book is that American dream is baloney, that no matter what, you're not going to make it. However, Fitzgerald does want us, essay exam alert, Fitzgerald does want us to admire Gatsby for having the dream, right? It's that duality again. The dream is baloney, forget it. You don't want to become rich anyway. They're jerks. Jordan, Tom, Daisy, you don't want to be like them. Do you want to hang out with them? They're really unappealing people. But he wants us to like Gatsby. On the second page of the book, essay exam alert, on the second page of the book, Nick says, no, it's Gatsby that turned out all right in the end. Second page of the book. Nick reunites his cousin Daisy. He hooks up his cousin Daisy with Gatsby at his house, right? At his house. Nick says to Gatsby, after they're up all night and Gatsby tells Nick the truth about his life, he says, you're worth the whole rotten bunch put together. That's point number 3. You're worth the whole rotten bunch put together. That's pretty nice. When Nick meets Gatsby's father says, "Oh, Mr." And Nick doesn't say, "Oh, I'm Mr. Carraway." Nick says, "We were close friends." I'm sorry. Gatsby's father says, "Were you friends with my son, Mr.?" And Nick says, "We were close friends. We were close friends." Nick tries to get people for Gatsby's funeral. Of course, Gatsby didn't know a lot of people. Gatsby has the parties for one reason, not to mingle. He doesn't mingle. He doesn't drink. He doesn't even have fun at his parties. And they look like good parties. He has the parties hoping one night Daisy will get swept in with the crowd and he'll say, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. Funny meeting you here," when he planned it the whole time. So Gatsby really doesn't have any friends, right? His only family member is his dad. Nick is his friend. Owl Eyes shows up, the servants, the postmaster. But otherwise, people don't go to the funeral. But Nick tries to get people. That shows Nick cares for Gatsby. And on the second to last page of the book, at the very end, Nick goes over to Gatsby's house, his empty failure of a house that failed to get the girl. And some kid with a piece of brick wrote a dirty word on Gatsby's porch. Nick erases it with his foot, still looking out for Gatsby even after Gatsby is dead. So Gatsby is Nick does not like that Gatsby has money, that he's a criminal. Nick loves Gatsby because Gatsby's a dreamer. Do not write in the essay exam, do not write that Nick loved the parties and the flash and he loved Gatsby's car. Nick hated all of that. Nick admired and loved Gatsby because Gatsby was a dreamer. And Fitzgerald wants us to love Gatsby. Fitzgerald wants us to admire the dreamer, but also ultimately see that the dream was a failure, I'm going to cut this off here and pick up in a minute.